This is Intervention News. And now, your anchors, Pierre Lemieux and John Johnson.
Welcome to the Intervention News. My name is Pierre, and here are your top headlines. Intervention. Is there really a rationale?
Yes, Pierre. A rationale for this intervention is that we choose to interview this man so we can find out more information about the world of strength and conditioning so that athletes today are more in tune and more physically fit to dominate you. I have an exclusive. I have some breaking news. I'm just getting word. We have an exclusive interview with Chris Schwartz from the SPC, strength and conditioning coach of the 67s. We go live now to Hassan Saeed.
So we're sitting down today with Chris Schwartz, strength and conditioning coach of the Auto 67s. Chris has been in the strength and conditioning field for approximately 15 years and has worked with professionals at all levels and also amateurs. He works with NHL, pros, athletes who play in Europe. Chris himself was a Division I volleyball player in Europe and has his degree from Dalhousie University in kinesiology and master's in exercise physiology. What is the biggest misconception the public perceives about your occupation?
Probably that all we are is people that we're training, that have trained before, and just gradually we moved into coaching. And it's not really that anymore. It's more that we're science-based, that we do have backgrounds in science, kinesiology, etc., with probably a background in sport, and that's why we're hopefully good at what we do.
Excellent. What are the biggest challenges you face on a day-to-day basis in terms of training athletes?
I think the biggest challenge is these days is trying to figure out if you're a strength coach or a physical educator, and dealing with different populations, different sports, and it's causing even the fact nowadays that many athletes are playing one sport. So we're not only just training them for that sport specific, that we're trying to incorporate other movements that they may not be getting from their own individual sport.
Stand by to receive our transmission.
And now it's time for another episode of Ask a Strength and Conditioning Coach. Today's lesson is squats. Squats build the quadricep, the large muscle group in front of your legs above the knees. A good squat starting position sees the legs about shoulder width apart with the toes pointed slightly outward. You should have a little break at the knees. Some people prefer placing a small block under their heels. You want all of your feet in contact with the ground throughout the movement. Remember, if it's not a good squat, it ain't worth diddly squat.
What kind of advice would you give to people wanting to start in a strength and conditioning field?
The biggest thing is to get experience, is to have the background in science, as I said, so you not only can replicate what somebody's doing but actually understand what they're doing, and trying to, as I said, trying to get in with somebody who does know what they're doing, and follow them around, volunteer, do what you can, because you do need to put your time in before you can get to a point where you are a quote unquote strength and conditioning coach at a high level.
Excellent. So moving into a little more specific based questions in regards to your field and your career, what is the hardest part about working with athletes in a training environment?
The hardest aspect, I guess, is that you have, for me personally, is that you have some athletes that are incredibly motivated and some that aren't incredibly motivated. So you're gonna and some that are in between. So you really have to figure out. Sometimes you're figuring out what a person's hot buttons are, and what their needs are. Some athletes need foot speed, and other athletes maybe need to get stronger, bigger, increase their lean mass. So the hardest thing, I think, for me is getting athletes that have maybe not trained all along, getting to an older age, and then we're expecting them to train, and they haven't been conditioned to that.
Excellent. How can you help an athlete who has a fear of injury reach their potential in the training environment?
Well, fear of training because they've had an injury before. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so when an athlete that's has an injury, if it's an impact injury, that's a little bit different. But with the way the new technology and the understanding that we have of the body, we can basically assess if it hasn't been an impact injury, that why that injury's occurred, and show the athlete why it's incurred, and then hopefully show them ways in which they can deal with it and minimize injuries by becoming more functional and, like I said, doing the proper exercises to keep them healthy.
Stand by.
And now it's time for another episode of Ask a Strength and Conditioning Coach. Today's lesson, the Swiss ball squat. The Swiss ball squat is an awesome exercise. One Swiss ball under the legs, standing on top and squatting. So basically, do what the last video showed you and just do it on top of a ball. So remember, be careful, enjoy, and have a ball. Oh, who writes this stuff?
When would you say an off-season program starts? How long after a competitive season would you start an athlete on, say, a phase 1 preparatory program?
Again, it depends on the length of, it depends on seasons, and again, you go back to athletes playing sports 12 months a year, so how much rest time should they have? Obviously, they should have 1 to 2 weeks rest with nothing, but again, you're looking at the periodization over the year and saying, well, how much time do they have?